Private First Class Nicole Johnson stood at the weapons cleaning station at Fort Leonard Wood's military police school, her hands shaking slightly as she attempted to load her fourth magazine of the afternoon at 2 p.m. Around her, 23 other MP students handled their weapons with growing confidence, the mechanical sounds of magazines being loaded and bolts cycling, creating a rhythm of competence that Nicole couldn't seem to match. Which city are you watching from? Share it in the comments. Maybe someone else from your city is here too. And if you believe heroes can appear in the most unexpected ways, hit subscribe and give this video a like. Staff Sergeant Patricia Williams watched Nicole's struggles with a mixture of frustration and genuine concern. In her 15 years as a military police instructor, she had trained thousands of soldiers in weapons handling, but Nicole Johnson presented challenges that tested every teaching technique she had developed over her career. Johnson, Staff Sergeant Williams said, approaching Nicole's station with the weary tone of someone who had repeated the same instructions countless times. "You're dropping rounds all over the floor again. A magazine that isn't properly loaded is worse than no magazine at all." Nicole looked down at the scattered 5.56mm rounds around her boots, evidence of another failed attempt at what should have been a basic soldier skill. Her face flushed with embarrassment as other students glanced in her direction, with expressions ranging from sympathy to barely concealed amusement. "Sorry, Staff Sergeant. I'll clean them up and try again." Williams studied Nicole's technique, looking for fundamental errors that might explain her consistent difficulties with basic weapons handling. "Johnson, show me your grip on the magazine. And slow down, this isn't a race." Nicole attempted to demonstrate proper magazine loading technique, but her hands trembled in a way that made the simple task appear impossibly difficult. The magazine slipped from her grip twice before she managed to seat it properly in her M4 carbine, and even then, her movements lacked the confidence that characterized competent weapon handling. What Staff Sergeant Williams couldn't know was that Nicole Johnson had once been considered one of the most skilled tactical shooters in U.S. Special Operations, with classified missions and capabilities that would make her current struggles seem like an elaborate deception. But the truth was buried in files that required clearance levels that exceeded those of most general officers. "Johnson, you need to understand that MPs deal with life-or-death situations where weapon malfunctions can get you and your battle buddies killed," Williams explained, her voice reflecting genuine concern rather than criticism. "If you can't handle basic weapons maintenance, you won't make it through the rest of this program." Nicole nodded silently, knowing that Williams was absolutely right about the stakes involved, but unable to explain that her apparent incompetence was the result of trauma-related conditioning that made routine weapons handling triggering in ways that operational weapons use wasn't. The afternoon convoy operations training brought new opportunities for Nicole to demonstrate the apparent incompetence that had made her the subject of whispered conversations throughout the MP school. As the students prepared their vehicles for a simulated patrol mission, Nicole was assigned as the gunner for the lead HMMWV, a position that required confidence and competence with crew-served weapons. Sergeant Martinez, the squad leader for the training exercise, reviewed Nicole's assignment with obvious reluctance. "Johnson, you'll be on the M240 machine gun for this exercise. Think you can handle that without dropping the ammunition belt?" Nicole climbed into the gunner's position with movements that appeared clumsy and uncertain, her hands shaking as she attempted to conduct pre-operation checks on the machine gun. Around her, other students prepared their weapons with the mechanical efficiency of soldiers who had mastered their equipment. "Johnson," Sergeant Martinez called up to her, "can you give me a functions check on that weapon? And please don't accidentally fire into the air like last week." The reference to Nicole's previous accidental discharge, a training accident that had resulted in additional safety briefings for the entire class, brought snickers from nearby students who had grown accustomed to her pattern of weapons-related mishaps. Nicole attempted to perform the functions check, but her movements were so obviously uncertain that Martinez decided to have another student verify her work before allowing the convoy to proceed. The delay was embarrassing for Nicole and frustrating for instructors who were trying to maintain training schedules despite her ongoing difficulties. But what none of them realized was that Nicole's apparent incompetence with weapons was actually a carefully managed psychological defense mechanism that prevented her from accessing muscle memory and training that were associated with traumatic combat experiences. She was still processing. The convoy training exercise was designed to simulate realistic patrol conditions that military police units encountered in combat zones. The route included potential ambush sites, roadside bomb locations, and checkpoint operations that tested students' ability to react appropriately to various tactical situations. Nicole's squad was responsible for providing security for a simulated supply convoy, moving through territory where insurgent activity was possible. The exercise incorporated realistic scenarios that would prepare MP students for the complex security challenges they would face during actual deployments. 2 hours into the patrol, at a location chosen specifically for its tactical complexity, the training exercise took an unexpected turn that would reveal capabilities Nicole had been hiding for over 8 months. The ambush began with simulated IED explosions that disabled 2 vehicles in the convoy and created a realistic emergency situation requiring immediate tactical response. Student MPs were expected to establish security, treat casualties, and coordinate evacuation while defending against continued simulated enemy contact. Nicole's vehicle was in the lead position when the exercise ambush began, placing her M240 machine gun in a crucial position for providing suppressive fire while other elements of the convoy responded to the attack. But instead of demonstrating competence under pressure, Nicole appeared to freeze completely. "Johnson, return fire!" Sergeant Martinez shouted over the sound effects and blank ammunition being used to simulate combat conditions. "You need to suppress those enemy positions." Nicole remained motionless behind her machine gun, apparently overwhelmed by the simulated combat situation. Other students began taking over her responsibilities, assuming that she was paralyzed by fear or confusion in her first exposure to realistic combat training. But then the training exercise became real, in ways that nobody had anticipated. What began as a simulated ambush using blank ammunition and sound effects became an actual emergency when one of the vehicles struck an unmarked obstacle and rolled over, trapping 2 students inside while leaking fuel created a genuine fire hazard. The exercise instantly transformed from training to an actual rescue situation requiring real tactical response. "Cease exercise," came the call over the radio as instructors realized that students were facing an actual emergency rather than simulated combat conditions. "We have real casualties and need immediate medical response." The rolled vehicle was positioned in terrain that made conventional rescue approaches dangerous, and the leaking fuel meant that time was critical for extracting the trapped students before conditions became even more hazardous. Standard rescue procedures would take time that the situation might not allow. That's when Nicole Johnson transformed completely, revealing capabilities that shocked everyone who had been watching her struggle with basic military skills for months. Without hesitation or apparent consideration for her own safety, Nicole left her position in the gunner's turret and moved toward the overturned vehicle with tactical precision that demonstrated extensive training in combat rescue operations. Her movements were no longer clumsy or uncertain, they were fluid, efficient, and professionally competent. "Johnson, get back in your vehicle," Sergeant Martinez called out, assuming that Nicole was making the situation worse by abandoning her assigned position. But Nicole ignored the order and continued her approach to the overturned vehicle, assessing the situation with analytical skills that exceeded anything she had demonstrated during months of training. She could see that conventional rescue approaches would take too long, and that immediate action was necessary to prevent the situation from becoming much worse. Working with mechanical precision, Nicole began establishing an improvised extraction system, using available equipment and tactical principles that weren't part of standard MP training. Her actions demonstrated knowledge of technical rescue operations that typically required specialized training and extensive experience. Staff Sergeant Williams, who had arrived on scene to coordinate the emergency response, watched Nicole's work with growing amazement. "Johnson, where the hell did you learn to do that?" Nicole was focused entirely on the rescue operation, her hands steady and confident as she worked to stabilize the overturned vehicle and create safe access to the trapped students. "Staff Sergeant, I can explain later. Right now, we need to get them out before this gets worse." The technical competence Nicole displayed during the rescue was extraordinary. She improvised anchoring systems, calculated load distributions, and coordinated extraction procedures that demonstrated expertise far beyond anything covered in military police training. Her work was not just effective, it was professional-level rescue operation management. 15 minutes later, both trapped students had been safely extracted and were receiving medical treatment for injuries that were serious but not life-threatening. Nicole had orchestrated the entire rescue operation while other students and instructors watched with increasing amazement at capabilities she had never demonstrated before. Staff Sergeant Williams approached Nicole as she was securing the rescue equipment, her expression a mixture of awe and complete confusion. "Johnson, I need you to explain what just happened here." Nicole looked around at the assembled MPs who were all staring at her with expressions of disbelief. The soldier who couldn't load a magazine without dropping rounds had just executed a complex rescue operation with the skill of someone trained in advanced tactical operations. "Staff Sergeant, I have some background in tactical rescue operations that I haven't discussed previously." Williams was incredulous. "Johnson, what background? Your record shows basic training and MP school, nothing about rescue operations or advanced tactical training." Nicole realized that her cover had been completely blown by necessity, but saving fellow students took priority over maintaining any deception about her capabilities. "Staff Sergeant, I have previous experience with special operations that included technical rescue training. My apparent difficulties with basic weapons handling are related to medical issues that affect routine training but don't impact operational performance." The implications hit everyone simultaneously. Nicole Johnson wasn't an incompetent MP student who was struggling with basic military skills. She was someone with advanced special operations training who had been concealing her actual capabilities for reasons that nobody at Fort Leonard Wood understood. Sergeant Martinez approached Nicole with obvious respect. "Johnson, special operations? What kind of special operations?" Nicole hesitated, knowing that full disclosure would require revealing aspects of her background that were classified at levels that exceeded the clearance of everyone present. "Sergeant, I can't discuss the specifics, but I have training and experience that goes beyond what's shown in my standard military record." Staff Sergeant Williams made a command decision. "Johnson, you're coming with me to see the company commander. This conversation is way above my pay grade." 2 hours later, Nicole sat in the office of Captain Robert Harrison, the commander of the military police school, along with Staff Sergeant Williams and a civilian woman who had introduced herself only as Ms. Peterson from the Department of the Army. "Private Johnson," Captain Harrison began, studying a file that had appeared on his desk with unusual speed and obvious classification markings. "Your actions during today's emergency have raised questions about your background and your assignment here at Fort Leonard Wood." Nicole remained at attention. "Yes, sir." Miss Peterson opened her file folder, revealing documents that were clearly classified at much higher levels than standard military records. "Nicole, your performance during the rescue operation demonstrated capabilities that aren't consistent with your apparent struggles in routine training." Captain Harrison leaned forward. "Johnson, Staff Sergeant Williams tells me you executed a technical rescue operation that would challenge experienced special operations personnel, but you can't load a magazine without dropping ammunition on the floor." Nicole chose her words carefully. "Sir, there are aspects of my background that affect how I perform in different situations." Miss Peterson spoke up. "Nicole, we're going to discuss some classified information that requires additional security protocols. Are you prepared for that level of conversation?" "Yes, ma'am." Miss Peterson produced documents that Nicole recognized as Special Access Program acknowledgments, far more restrictive than standard military security agreements. After Nicole signed the required paperwork, the real conversation began. "Private First Class Nicole Johnson," Miss Peterson said, "also known by the operational call sign Raven 6, formerly assigned to 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment Delta under deep cover for psychological recovery and readjustment training." Captain Harrison studied Nicole with new understanding. "Johnson, your actual background includes 3 years with Delta Force and multiple classified deployments in direct action and hostage rescue operations." Nicole finally relaxed slightly. "Yes, sir, that's correct." Miss Peterson continued, "For the past 8 months, you've been assigned to military police school as part of a psychological recovery program designed to help special operations personnel readjust to conventional military service following traumatic combat experiences. Your apparent incompetence with routine weapons handling is actually trauma-related conditioning that makes peacetime weapons training triggering, while your operational capabilities remain intact during actual emergency situations." Captain Harrison was impressed despite his confusion. "Johnson, why wasn't this information included in your standard records?" Nicole's voice grew quiet. "Sir, The psychological recovery program requires that participants appear to be struggling with basic military skills to avoid pressure to return to special operations before they're psychologically ready. Miss Peterson nodded. Nicole, the program is designed to provide a safe environment for processing combat trauma while maintaining the tactical skills that make special operations personnel valuable to national security. Captain Harrison considered this explanation. Johnson, are you saying that your failures in training are actually therapeutic exercises rather than genuine incompetence? Yes, sir. The program requires me to struggle with routine tasks while demonstrating that my operational capabilities remain available during actual emergencies. Miss Peterson leaned forward. Nicole, today's rescue operation proved that your tactical skills are fully intact and that you're ready to transition to the next phase of your recovery program. Captain Harrison stood up. Johnson, what does the next phase involve? Sir, Miss Peterson replied, Nicole will be assigned to specialized military police training that makes better use of her actual capabilities while continuing her psychological recovery process. Nicole felt relief mixed with apprehension. Ma'am, will I continue to work in military police operations? Miss Peterson smiled. Nicole, you'll be assigned to the MP units that handle the most challenging and specialized missions. Your Delta Force background makes you uniquely qualified for high-risk law enforcement operations. 3 months later, Private First Class Nicole Johnson stood at the graduation ceremony for the Military Police Special Response Team course at Fort Leonard Wood, wearing the specialized badge that marked her as qualified for the Army's most demanding law enforcement missions. Staff Sergeant Williams, who had requested assignment as an instructor in the Special Response Program, approached Nicole during the ceremony. Private Johnson, how does it feel to finally be able to demonstrate your actual capabilities? Nicole smiled, feeling confident for the first time since beginning her psychological recovery program. Staff Sergeant, it feels like I can finally serve effectively without having to hide what I'm capable of accomplishing. Williams nodded approvingly. Johnson, you've taught all of us something important about not judging soldiers based on their performance in training situations that might not reflect their actual capabilities. As Nicole prepared for assignment to her first specialized MP unit, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. She had spent months accepting professional humiliation and questions about her basic competence, when actually she possessed tactical skills that exceeded those of most soldiers in the Army. Her phone buzzed with a text message from one of the students she had rescued. Johnson, heard about your new assignment. Thanks for getting us out of that mess. The Army's lucky to have soldiers like you in the right jobs. Nicole smiled as she put her phone away. She wasn't hiding her capabilities anymore, and she wasn't struggling with trauma responses that made routine training feel impossible, while operational situations remained manageable. The woman who had been known as the MP school's most dangerous student had become one of the Army's most qualified special response specialists, proving that recovery from combat trauma takes many forms, and that the most valuable soldiers sometimes need unconventional paths to return to effective service.